1611 with me cause I'm on a mission. Talking sheep, I pay the cost, me and my lines really live it. I don't need no glory, you don't have to know my story. Glad I made it out this world, cause this world was never for me. I thought that I was. If it wasn't for the Most High who was on my side, man, ain't no telling where I'd be. Mr. Wilson would've known. Can't nobody tell me nothing different. The Father's been good to me. So good to me. Yeah. Wave your hands if you feel me. I'm a witness. Yeah, how it's been good to me. So good to me. Every morning that I rise, I thank Yahweh that I'm living. Keep my enemies at bay and never leave without my fringes. 1611 with me cause I'm on a mission. Talking sheep, I pay the cost, me and my lines really live it. I don't need no glory, you don't have to know my story. Glad I made it out this world, cause this world was never for me. I thought that I was. If it wasn't for the Most High who was on my side, man, ain't no telling where I'd be. Mr. Wilson would've known. Can't nobody tell me nothing different. The Father's been good to me. So good to me. Yeah. Wave your hands if you feel me. I'm a witness. Yeah, how it's been good to me. So good to me. Every morning that I rise, I thank Yahweh that I'm living. Keep my enemies at bay and never leave without my fringes. 1611 with me cause I'm on a mission. Talking sheep, I pay the cost, me and my lines really live it. I don't need no glory, you don't have to know my story. Glad I made it out this world, cause this world was never for me. I thought that I was. If it wasn't for the Most High who was on my side, man, ain't no telling where I'd be. Mr. Wilson would've known. Can't nobody tell me nothing different. The Father's been good to me. So good to me. Yeah. Wave your hands if you feel me. I'm a witness. Yeah, how it's been good to me. So good to me. Every morning that I rise, I thank Yahweh that I'm living. Keep my enemies at bay and never leave without my fringes. 1611 with me cause I'm on a mission. Talking sheep, I pay the cost, me and my lines really live it. I don't need no glory, you don't have to know my story. Glad I made it out this world, cause this world was never for me. I thought that I was. If it wasn't for the Most High who was on my side, man, ain't no telling where I'd be. Mr. Wilson would've known. Can't nobody tell me nothing different. The Father's been good to me. So good to me. Yeah. Wave your hands if you feel me. I'm a witness. Yeah, how it's been good to me. So good to me. Every morning that I.
Shalom, good evening everybody. We about to get started in a couple seconds when I get on stage. All right, everybody, good evening. It's been a minute. It's been a while doing world history, True Nation. It's been a busy couple of months, hectic schedules, but we're back on program to give you guys the necessary knowledge y'all need in order to understand that Israelites still and have been scattered across the whole earth in every corner, anywhere where civilization exists and there's people somewhere close by, and on the bottom of society you will find Jews, Hebrews, Israelites there. So today we're touching bases in North Africa, Northwest Africa, the regions, on your maps today, the countries, like Libya, Morocco, Algeria, that area, that's actually the southern part of the Mediterranean Sea. So I know the lesson is called the Jews, which is specific tribes, the Jews' migration into this area, but we're just going to cover down just a little bit of, just Israelite history belonging there, period. So just a little bit of background. Obviously, you guys know Africa as a whole continent, and North Africa specifically, that's not exactly the land allotment that the Most High gave us. You know, He gave us something relatively east. So this particular region is actually native to non-Israelites, people that commonly are called today the Berber people, you know, and that's a terminology, you know, coming from, you know, Greek and Latin. It was actually a derogatory term derived from barbarian. The people there is actually called themselves the Amazigh, you know, but this is just another nation of people, another desert dwelling nation of people, you know, nomadic that, you know, went from oasis to oasis trying to get by, tribal warfare type people, you know. So those are the Berber people that are actually the natives of the region historically. And actually, crazy enough, just little fun little tidbits, world history on an earth tip. The Sahara Desert, which is just below North Africa, wasn't always a desert at one point in time. Some point in time, I believe, pre-flood, it actually used to be, and according to cave drawings and rock art there that you can find in the Sahara Desert, it used to be actually a really lush, fertile area. But then obviously, you know, times change. You know, times have changed since the flood. Times have changed even since after the flood, you know, with Nimrod and Babel and everything like that. So we can't exactly pinpoint to you when exactly that was, but once upon a time, the Sahara Desert was not always a desert. And it's crazy enough, that part of Africa is big enough to hold the whole United States of America in it. So that's a big continent that we're dealing with, you know, over there. But I digress. So let's get into this. The very first time that we see Israelites with any relevancy to the area was with King Solomon, his allegiance with the Phoenicians, a Hamitic or Canaanite tribe, and their voyages into what is called Carthage. Now, Carthage, if you want to look at a map, I'm going to give you guys a moment to get a map because I don't often do, you know, lessons with pictures and videos, but if I could paint the picture for you, that'd be even better. When you go to a map or a Bible atlas, historically, Carthage is just the southern part of the Mediterranean Ocean. But when you switch perspectives, that's the northern part of Africa. So keep those two things in mind. Southern part of the Mediterranean Sea, the northern part of Africa. That's where Carthage is, you know. And this is actually the place, according to Josephus, this was the Tarshish that he was speaking about. Let's open your Bibles real quick. I want you to get to 1 Kings chapter 10 and verse 22. So this is around the 10th century or 9th century BC, the time of, you know, Solomon's reign as king over Israel. That's, again, the 9th century, about 960, 940. Around that is when we're dealing with this prehistory right here. 10 and 22. 1 Kings chapter 10 and 22.
For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with navy Salakia. For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Haram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom. And all the earth sought to Solomon to hear his wisdom, which the Most High had put in his heart. And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver and vessels of gold, and garments and armor, and spices, horses and mules, a rate year by year. And Solomon gathered together chariots and horsemen, and he had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the cities for chariots, and with the king at Jerusalem.
So that's the biblical account and testimony. The Bible is beautiful. It touches on so many points, geography, economics, wisdom. Just the Bible's got literally everything that any book in existence could ever have, minus the fiction. But that's straight out the Bible, telling you right there. Now, again, this place, Tarshish, I want to get you guys just the explanation from this book. This is a beautiful book right here called Hebrewisms of West Africa, but we're also dealing with North Africa in this book as well, too. So this is chapter 8, and it's called Vanished Glories of the North. And I'm going to get you guys the particular part I want you guys to read about Carthage. You can actually read this whole section. So the first two paragraphs within Hebrewisms of West Africa, just another source to kind of verify this, an archaeological and anthropological source to verify the Bible that we have and believe in.
Chapter 8, Vanished Glories of the North. Professor Dixon states, conservatively, the Jews of the North African coast, from Tunis to Morocco, although not as ancient residents as those in Egypt, have nevertheless been settled in the country at least since the 2nd century AD. By the 5th century, they were numerous and had converted to Judaism several Berber tribes, who offered vigorous opposition to the advance of the Muslim conquerors a century or two later. That there were many Jews, however, in northern Africa long before the 2nd century, there can be little question. In fact, as we shall see, the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem by Titus undoubtedly found numerous well-established and influential Jewish colonies located there, to which refugees from the fallen city fled for asylum.
So right now what he spoke about is a little bit jumping ahead, but we're talking about the more so the prehistory, before the destruction of the temple, which obviously is after Solomon. We're focusing on Solomon's time right now. So that's what this next paragraph is about to be about the more ancient prehistory dealings with this area. You can read on.
Nay, more, we hope to show that almost from the earliest days of Phoenician adventure, the Jews, at first as individuals, then as groups, identified themselves with the commercial enterprises of Tyre and Sidon.
So again, right out the Bible, it tells you that Solomon had made an allegiance and a pact with Hiram. Hiram was from Tyre, and Tyre was of the nation of the Phoenicians. So you have Phoenicians here in what will become Carthage in North Africa, and the Israelites that, for lack of a better term, supervised, the ships and ran them as well too, and also settled in this area in colonies in allegiance with some Hamitic Canaanites as well too. That's what we're dealing with the first beginnings of colonization of North Africa. Not let alone that the Berber people were already there. So we got, including ourselves, we got two other nations that we're dealing with, on a side-by-side basis. Read on.
At the very outset of this chapter, then, it may be well to outline briefly the remarkable story of this energetic nation of merchants and mariners.
That was the end of the second paragraph? Oh, yeah, that's cool. You hand it back to me. So again, the main dealings with this, matter of fact, the main dealings, just period, in any point in time was business. Other than fleeing captivity and expulsion from our land, the main purpose for Israelites being outside of the homeland was through merchandise and business, learning about how to, basically rule these nations amongst them around the whole world. Carthage, North Africa, was one of the first places that this happened in. One of the main points to understand as far as historically and as well as modern day is Tripoli. So Tripoli was a major trading post, city, outpost within North Africa, Carthage, that was, again, historically known as Tripoli, but today, modernly, is called Libya. So the whole country of Libya, the very upper crest of it, where the coast is of the Mediterranean Sea, that's where Tripoli is. And that was, again, a major historical trading post where Israelites were doing business and ruling over this particular area in northwest Libya. So let me see if we got anything about Carthage right here. So this book, Hebrewisms of West Africa, it fills in a lot of the details, the historical details that the Bible doesn't necessarily, give you. It just gives you, the Bible is the Bible. It gives you the straight dope. It tells you just exactly what you need to know. And everything else, historical sources like this, just unravels it. And there's so much unraveling in history that you can get lost, within days, seasons, even years, depending on what you may be studying on. So we're not going to make this one of those types of lessons. Just understand that, bam, biblical proof, bam, historical source proof right here. And you got pictures and atlases and maps to show you as well, too, what it is exactly that we are talking about right here. But everything in this book tells you about, as far as proofs, the language that's historically been found there, the archaeology, Hebraic inscriptions, such like that. All that is in there in this book as a testimony to, what we have going right here. This I do want you to read real quick, though. I want you to read this section in Tarshish, because that word is used in the Bible. And now we'll get an understanding, according to this author, who is quoting Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews. We're going to see what Tarshish actually meant in the Bible.
Dr. Davis, in his turn, begins his work on Carthage by endeavoring to establish his claim that Carthage was in reality the Tarshish of the sacred writers, and urges in support of this theory the Chaldee supposed to have been written about the time of our Savior, renders the word Tarshish by Africa. This view is supported by the Jews Encyclopedia, where we read, modern scholars are inclined to identify the biblical Tarshish with Carthage, since it is thus translated in the Septuagint, that the Targum and the Vulgate. Professor Rawlinson, subscribing to the view of Dean Stanley, and the Reverend J. Hammond, insist on a clear distinction between the navy of Tarshish and the one which brought gold from Ophir. Consequently, he maintains, it was the ambition of Solomon to make the Israelites a nautical people and to participate in the advantages which he had perceived to have occurred to Phoenicia from her commercial enterprises. Besides sharing with the Phoenicians in the trade of the Mediterranean, he constructed with her help a fleet of Ezion Geber upon the Red Sea, and the two allies conjointly made voyages to the region or country called Ophir.
That's cool. So everything I basically explained to y'all, again, is written about in this book in a more or less complicated language. So again, there's not too much more to say about that. Ancient origins with the Phoenicians and Carthage, the establishment of Carthage is right there in the Bible. Now moving forward about, we're going to say like 400 years. We're going to say 400, 500 years from 900 BC to what we just spoke about to now about the destruction of the first temple. We're going to see Jews in particular briefly actually escaping there too. So I want you guys to understand this too. Egypt is low-key considered North Africa as well too. It's literally on the northern coast of Africa and close to the Mediterranean. So when we talk about historically Alexandria, dealing with the Greek captivity, such like that, again, Jews, frequented that area. So that was, again, another path into North Africa. So, but again, another period of time where that happened was the destruction of the first temple. Where do we read about this destruction of the first temple? The book of Second Kings. So we're going to get to Second Kings. 2 Kings chapter 25 and verse 26. So again, this is the 5th century BC. About this time happening. And this time it wasn't for business where Israelites or Jews in particular went there. It was because we were fleeing from a captivity that the Most High had pronounced against us.
2 Kings chapter 25 and verse 26. And all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldees. And it came to pass in the 7th and 30th year of the captivity of Jehoiachin, king of Judah, in the 12th month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, that evil Merodach, king of Babylon, in the year that he began to reign, did lift up the head of Jehoiachin, king of Judah, out of prison. And he spake kindly to him, and set his throne above the throne of the kings that were with him in Babylon.
You can stop right there. The first verse was, again, the Bible, can sometimes go over your head. That verse in 26, literally, it holds a lot of history to it. Again, this wasn't the first time that Jews, in particular Israelites, looked to Egypt, for help. And in this case, the ones that fled, and this particular portion of history, that's a lesson for another day. Just know that this was pretty much the end of Judea at this time, and those that fled went into Egypt. And from Egypt, you can only imagine, through history and tracing Jewish history, that we made our way to multiple portions of North Africa. But just the fact they went to Egypt alone proves the fact of this lesson. Egypt is North Africa. So that's one other instance, and again, these are upon thousands of our people, if not hundreds, fleeing the Babylonian captivity just to get out of harm's way by going to Egypt, and then surely to Carthage and elsewhere. So that's one other point. The second point, we got probably two or three more points to make about this. So now we're going to deal with the Greek captivity. So again, dealing with the Greek captivity, or rather the Greek conquering of the whole world, we also see that Israelites defected from their own laws and such just to have league and partnership by choice with this particular empire. And, all that goes anywhere where we need to go, we're going to go. And we're going to get the history of that in the Bible first. If you have your Apocrypha, I want you to go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1. I'm going to tell you right now. 1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 11.
In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
That's cool. So in doing so with that, Israelites were not confined to just wanting to stay within the homeland, the motherland. They decided to, go out and abroad. And one of those main places under the Greek Empire, under Alexander the Great this time, was Alexandria, which was in Egypt. So for sure, our people made treks and travels on ship, boat, or foot just to get to this portion of Africa, of North Africa, in Alexandria, Egypt. Again, nothing new. Something that Israelites and Jews in particular have been making and been doing. Just to keep proving the point in the Bible, you can go to same chapter in 1 Maccabees and read verse 43.
Yea, Many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath.
So there was safety in going to these different regions of the world to do that. So again, this is the beginning of Israelite migration into these territories with the Greeks in particular. One of the main places that this was, you know what? Yeah, one of the main places this was a region called Cyrenaica. Historically, it was called Cyrenaica. Today, if you want to look that up, you would want to look into Libya and go to the eastern part. So the northern lip that touches the coast of the Mediterranean, that whole eastern section of Libya is where historical Greek Cyrenaica is. So it sounds like Cyrene, but Cyrene is a different city. Cyrenaica is, again, in northern Libya, and that was a major Israelite outpost, due to this captivity. Let's get some more scriptures just proving all this. Go to Ezekiel chapter 27 and verse 19, and after that, read verse 25. Ezekiel 27 and 19. You'll see, again, much like Hiram and Solomon, we have particular tribes of Israelites that also made, business covenants with the Greeks in particular in this situation.
Ezekiel chapter 27 and verse 19. Dan also and Javan going to and fro occupied in thy fairs. Bright iron, cassia, and calamus were in thy market.
So again, the business aspects of Israelite trade. Dan is a one tribe. Dan is a tribe of Israel. Javan is Japhetic nation. Javan is actually the Greeks. So the tribe of Dan in particular during this time had tight business with the Greeks, So again, that's why we were in these particular areas. Read verse 25.
The ships of Tarshish did sing of thee in thy market, and thou wast replenished and made very glorious in the midst of the seas.
So again, using the Bible to paint a picture of these migrations, which again was mainly due to business or captivity, or fleeing righteousness, essentially. So again, that's historically dealing with the Greeks. So let's get some more information out of this book, Hebrewisms of West Africa. Not to go into too much detail, but we got to understand what we're talking about here, Carthage. All right, right here. You can read this top paragraph right there, underlined in the blue.
Thousands of Jews expelled from Palestine in the 4th century BC, and others driven in the 2nd century AD from Cyrenaica, where they had sought refuge after the fall of Jerusalem, had swelled the number of the comparatively few descendants of those Israelites who had come to Africa as the Phoenicians' commercial agents.
That was it. You said the blue, right? Yep. And then you can read that blue too. So reading it from Hebrewisms of West Africa.
Of the present Politan Jews, Slosh, they are certainly descendants of Jews who came to this country from Palestine, but there is undoubtedly in them a strain of Berber and Arab blood. In fact, the same may be said of all the Jewish colonies in North Africa who still claim Palestinian descent.
And then this blue paragraph.
Ptolemy the son of Largus, as to those Jews who dwelt in Alexandria, for he entrusted the fortresses of Egypt into their hands, as believing they would keep them faithfully and valiantly for him. And when he was desirous to secure the government of Cyrene and the other cities of Libya to himself, he sent a party of Jews to inhabit them.
So again, It's more of that history right here in the scriptures that go into the further the Greek aspect of Jewish migration into the region. So now you see we get getting a lot. We get a lot of cultural blending from the Hamitic aspect, the Greek aspect, even again too dealing with the natives of there, the Berberish aspect as well too. So you can only imagine, through the course of time, Jews that were devout and keeping the faith, and some of them that just fell off, what they could have fell off into. And a lot of that time, falling off from our faith in the Most High, I mean, the biggest thing is falling into paganism and idolatry and mixing in with the inhabitants of the region and kind of losing the not only the physical identity of our people, which is important, but the spiritual aspect, which is even more important. Losing our covenant understanding and getting into polytheism and stuff like that, worshiping the sun and the moon, worshiping spirits within the wilderness and nature. That was what was going on historically, traditionally, within that region. And then the influence of the Egyptians from the east and the Greeks from the north didn't make it any better, as you're aware of, as we are all aware of, coming out of our own spiritual captivities in America today. So now, again, we're going to fast forward a little bit more in history. So that was dealing with the Greeks aspect, the ancient Greek aspect. The other aspect, too, dealing with more so the Romans, was the destruction of the Second Temple. When the temple got destroyed the second time, it was because of the Romans. So when Emperor Titus, and this is historical just information, when Titus, the General Titus, came into Jerusalem and besieged it in 70 AD, for a couple more years after that, a lot of the Jews were not only just killed, but slave traded to various regions of control under the Roman Empire. And again, this was also going back to Carthage and Alexandria and North Africa that Rome had in control over as well too. Open your Gospels, the book of Matthew. Go to chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24. Let me see real quick. Give me a second. Okay, Matthew chapter 24, I read from verse 15, and I'll tell you when to stop.
When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
So this was an instruction from Christ telling them, look, this isn't happening right now, but basically was 30 to 70. In 40 years from now, you're going to see this abomination of desolation, the menorah being removed and taken out of the temple, the temple desecrated and destroyed, and whatever, they was putting up there, much like the Greeks. When you see that, then just know that it's time to get out of here. I'm giving you a little heads up. Flee to the mountains. And when you look, at the geography of the region, there's mountains from Jerusalem. There's mountains in the southwestern portion, that goes into Egypt. So that was definitely what Christ was hinting at. And again, Christ himself literally hid in Egypt his own self. So he was telling the Israelites, it's time to go. You're going to find a community of my people over in Alexandria, over in Africa. Anyway, go there. Don't stay here. So again, this was dealing with the destruction of the first temple that Christ was prophesying, excuse me, the second temple that Christ was prophesying to those that believed at this time, which again happened in around 70 AD and a couple years after that. So in history, when it talks about the destruction of the second temple in the 1st century to the 2nd century, that's what we're dealing with. You know, Israelites that got the heads up went down there. Jews that didn't know, they got slave traded, if not murdered, you know, towards that area as well, too, during that time. So that's, again, the Greeks and the Romans, 3rd century BC to about the 2nd century AD, you got that aspect of migration into North Africa as well, too. Now, the last one we're going to speak about is from the 2nd century AD to about the 6th or 7th century. That's about 400 years later, dealing with the Muslims, the Islam, and the Arabs. They, too, traded and displaced Israelites, Jews, to go into North Africa again as well, too, in history. And that's because the Muslim conquest. You got all the way in the east dealing with Arabia and Muhammad and all his, you know, generals under him, that's now expanding in the 7th century AD, expanding Islam all over the place, you know, from Arabia, more east, and of course dealing in Africa, in North Africa in particular, that we got this going on. There's one particular man that I want you guys to look up for yourself. His name is Musa, and not Mansa Musa, but Musa ibn Nasir. He was a major factor, a major general of conquering the northern African region of the continent, as well as going into Spain as well too, you know, dealing with the Moors and such like that. But Musa ibn Nasir, he actually in some senses was a little bit more merciful to Jews. Instead of killing them for not submitting to Islam, he said, okay, look, since you're the people of the book that Muhammad didn't have the patience to deal with, because if you didn't know, Muhammad knew who the Jews were, learned from them, but still was angry because they mocked him because of his foolishness and killed them. This particular general in this region, he didn't do that. He just set a tax, basically saying, hey, if you guys don't convert and you guys are like Christians or Jews, we're not going to just kill you and convert you. We're going to let you do your thing, but we're going to tax you pretty much. So everything revenue that you're making, just pay up and y'all will live. So that's what this particular figure did. Again, his name is Musa ibn Nasir. He conquered the northern part of Africa over here, Jews included, but he let, for the most part, them live in that region. Other regions within Islam wasn't so much lucky though. A lot of Israelites still got killed over in the Middle East and more abroad. So that's dealing with that particular man. Let me see if I got a section for you that in this book, Hebrewisms of West Africa. I believe I highlighted something. Just read this paragraph right there. Islamicize North Africa. And then that should be good.
With the advent then of Mohammedanism in North Africa, the progress and development of the Jews, for the time at least, was not impeded, and they extended their commercial enterprises to every part of the Sudan. E.F. Gaudier, who was made exhaustive studies of this part of Africa is most categorical in his statement. The Jews of Figuig had certainly of old relations with the Sudan. They are hideous brutes, hairy, half-naked, fierce in countenance, and as cunning as a Kabyle dog. They do not in the least resemble Israelitish merchants, and nevertheless, that is what they are. They manufacture with what they call the gold of the Sudan, trinkets which very quickly become covered with verdigris.
No, that's cool. Definitely get this book for you guys selves. It's got a lot of jam-packed information about just the migration and the evidence therewith. So let me just recap for you guys. Beyond a recap, these are some places that I want you guys to keep in mind, because again, these are regions that still exist today, and not exclusive to where Israelites are. But if you're going to go looking and searching in these places, these are some places that you want to remember these particular cities. Cyrenaica, remember that. Tripoli, remember that. Mauritania, which is the more western aspect of North Africa, and the southern portion of the Atlas Mountains. Again, according to research in this book and more research abroad, these are the main centers where traditionally there was a lot of commerce. And again, these are mainly to the coast of the Mediterranean. Anything southern below that, of course, there's going to be some Israelites, but why not look at the most obvious places? These major trading centers still exist today. You know, they haven't gone away. They just the regions have expanded, the names have changed. But today you'll still find Israelites in these historical places, because guess what? History doesn't change. It just grows, essentially. If you're out searching for Israelites, if you're out searching for these particular places and regions in North Africa, and you will find us not in a glorified state like what we was back then, but suffering the curses relative to the region for the most part in that area. We're always going to be at the bottom of society, if not somewhere in between amongst the other nations, and sometimes, more often than not, looking like these other nations too. But what do the scriptures say? You try the Spirit by the Spirit. You prophesy the word of the Most High. You prophesy the covenant, the testimony, the history, the authority of Christ, and then those who need to hear and will hear, their spirit, it'll rejuvenate. The seeds will plant. Some will take longer than others, but the Israelites in the area that need to know, they will know. And that's all about the spreading the gospel that we're supposed to do. There's a particular scripture I want to get you guys with that too, that Christ said. Go to Matthew chapter 10, verse 5 through 8 right now.
Matthew chapter 10 and verse 5. These 12 Yahushua sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and not into any city of the Samaritans. Enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as ye go, preach, saying, The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. Freely ye have received, freely give.
Again, that's the mission as the disciples to different levels, to apostles. That's the mission that we're commanded to do in the whole world. It's really simple, but it's not simple because you got to know what you're talking about. But when you finally get it, when it finally sits in, go wherever you need to go, and go in wisdom, because Christ said, look, go to the highways and the byways. Go to the highways. That means, the highways where all the business is going on. Israelites like to get themselves into business, like to make some money, the Jews in particular. But go there and you will find them, and speak my words to them. Speak about the gospel, speak repentance, and those that need to hear are going to hear. The mission and the duty hasn't changed. We just play it in different areas. So again, hope y'all took this this directive, this lesson seriously. Anybody that may be in that part, anybody making plans in that part, please help us out, help yourself out by prophesying and doing what you do, and don't lose faith. Just know that people are in this region, and you have this lesson to review. You have these books to review. You got maps to review to increase your faith with that. So with that being said, you guys, there's not too much more to get into. You can always dig into it deeper for yourself, but I'm going to say thank you and good night.